Okay, let's dive right in. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're venturing into the fascinating, microscopic, and, well, honestly, kind of creepy world of an invisible invader that might just be hiding in your next glass of water. Today, we're talking about Giardia lamblia. It's a total master of disguise and survival. As one of the most common intestinal parasites on the planet, its playbook for infiltrating the human body is nothing short of an evolutionary marvel. We're going to break down exactly how this tiny little organism operates. To really understand the stakes right out of the gate, just let this number sink in for a second, 3 to 4 million. This single microscopic bug is responsible for up to 4 million deaths in children under 5 every single year. So we're dealing with a massive global threat here, especially in developing countries. We aren't just talking about a minor stomach bug that ruins a weekend camping trip. We are talking about a highly efficient, prolific pathogen that has a profound impact on global human health. So here is our quick agenda for today. First, we'll meet the invader. Then we'll track its life cycle, look at the havoc it wreaks in the gut, check out the symptoms and risks, and finally, go over diagnosis and defense. All right, Section 1, let's meet our microscopic invader. Believe it or not, the history of this parasite goes all the way back to 1681. That's when Antony von Leeuwenhoek first spotted it in his own stool using one of the world's very first microscopes. And when you look at its active trophozoite stage, you immediately see why it stands out. Those two circular nuclei with the little dots in the middle, they give Giardia a highly characteristic, almost creepy face-like appearance. It genuinely looks like a tiny, ghostly little face staring right back at you. Plus, it's perfectly symmetrical, with 4 pairs of flagella acting like little tails to help it swim around. But here's the thing. Giardia is a brilliant shapeshifter. It doesn't just stay in that face-like form. It actually exists in 2 distinct stages. Inside your gut, it acts as this active feeding trophozoite, swimming around with a very distinct movement that scientists call a falling leaf motility. But to survive the harsh outside world, like freezing cold water or dirt, it transforms into a cyst. The cyst is armored, it has a thick wall, it's oval-shaped, and it's incredibly resilient. This cyst is the infective stage. It's basically a microscopic Trojan horse just waiting to be swallowed. Moving right along to Section 2, the parasite's life cycle. What makes this bug so incredibly effective is just how simple its strategy is. It completes its entire life cycle in a single host, us. That means it doesn't need mosquitoes or pigs or any intermediate host at all to spread. You accidentally ingest the cyst from contaminated food, water, or even unwashed hands. That armored little shell travels right down your esophagus, survives the treacherous journey into your gut, multiplies into an absolute army, and then packs itself back up into new cysts to be excreted into the environment. And then it's ready to start the cycle all over again with somebody else. Now, you might be wondering, how does it know when it's safe to come out of its armor? Well, the invasion officially begins with a really fascinating process called excistation. The cyst is built to withstand extreme conditions out in the wild, but the highly acidic environment of your stomach, which sits at a crazy low pH of 1.3 to 2.7, acts as the exact biological trigger it's waiting for. That stomach acid, combined with your own pancreatic enzymes, actually cracks open the cyst's thick wall once it reaches your duodenum. And it happens fast. Once swallowed, that single cyst hatches into not 1 but 2 active trophozoites within just 30 minutes. Once they're free, they multiply rapidly through binary fission, essentially just cloning themselves over and over again. They feed and thrive in your small intestine. Eventually, as they get pushed further down into your large intestine where the pH neutralizes, that change triggers encystation. Within about 15 to 24 hours, they grow a brand new, thick, hyaline cyst wall, turning back into those armored cysts just in time to be excreted. Okay, Section 3, wreaking havoc in the gut. So here's a really interesting question. Giardia is entirely non-invasive. It does not penetrate your surrounding tissues, and it never, ever enters your bloodstream. It stays strictly inside the intestinal lumen. So how on earth does an organism that just sits on the surface of your gut cause weeks of severe illness? Well, the answer comes down to sheer numbers and suction. Millions of these trophozoites literally create a carpet-like physical blockade over your intestinal wall. Remember that face we talked about earlier? On its underside, it has a concave adhesive sucking disc. It uses this disc to fiercely suction right onto your intestinal cells. This aggressive attachment destroys your microvilli, flattening them out in a process called villi atrophy. Because your gut is now physically blocked by millions of parasites and your absorbing cells are badly damaged, you completely lose the ability to absorb nutrients, water, and electrolytes. All those unabsorbed fluids just stay in your gut, which results in severe, watery, osmotic diarrhea. Which brings us to section 4, recognizing the symptoms and risks. Giardia absolutely loves an opportunistic environment, and humans are its main reservoir. You are at an incredibly high risk if you spend time in daycares, because diaper-aged kids and their caregivers are super prone to person-to-person transmission through poor hand hygiene. But it's also famous as beaver fever among outdoor enthusiasts. If you're a backpacker, a hiker, or a camper drinking untreated water from a seemingly pristine mountain stream, or even if you just accidentally swallow a gulp of water while swimming in a local lake, you are rolling the dice with Giardia cysts. If you do get infected, there's usually an incubation period of about 1 to 3 weeks before the fireworks start. Now, a lot of cases are actually asymptomatic, but when symptoms hit, they hit hard. Acute Giardiasis features explosive watery diarrhea, severe abdominal cramping, flatulence, and bloating that typically drags on for 5 to 7 days. Interestingly, there's usually no blood involved because, again, the parasite doesn't invade the tissue itself. However, in about 5% of people, this dangerously progresses into chronic Giardiasis. This features severe malabsorption of fat, profound weight loss, and tragically, in children, it can lead to severely stunted growth and delayed developmental milestones. Finally, section 5, diagnosis, treatment, and prevention. While doctors today often use stool concentration methods or antigen tests, I literally have to share one of the wildest diagnostic tools out there, the entero test. For this test, you literally go fishing in your own gut. A patient swallows a weighted gelatin capsule that's attached to a long nylon string. The capsule dissolves in the stomach, and the weighted string drops right down into the duodenum, which is basically the parasite's headquarters. You just sit there with the string taped to your cheek for 4 to 6 hours, sometimes overnight. Then the doctor pulls the string back up out of your mouth, scrapes off the mucus at the end, and puts it under a microscope to look for those live, swimming, creepy little trophozoite faces. Absolutely wild, right? Once the infection is positively identified, doctors typically deploy a drug called metronidazole, which is highly effective at wiping out the parasite. But, as any medical professional will tell you, your absolute best defense is always going to be prevention. You cannot see, taste, or smell Giardia cysts in your water, so properly disposing of waste, boiling or filtering all your drinking water when you're outdoors, and maintaining strict hand hygiene, especially in daycares, is absolutely critical. Learning about all this kind of changes how you look at the great outdoors, doesn't it? That crystal clear water bubbling over the rocks might look pure and refreshing, but it could be teeming with invisible, armored cysts just waiting for your stomach acid to wake them up. So I'll leave you with this final, slightly chilling thought. Knowing about this microscopic shapeshifter, its creepy little face, and its masterful playbook, are you entirely sure you want to risk that unfiltered sip? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and stay safe out there.